Good morning, guys. A little bit of, what's today's date? I don't even know what today's date is. Jesus Christ, it's been that much. It's the day after the Super Bowl. You figured I'd start one of these, I'd actually know how I'd want to lead it off. But that's how I roll. We're just going to roll into things. And, woke up this morning and I figured, okay, we'll start my new, video diary vlog, commute video, whatever you want to call it off. What are we going to do? Well, you know what? It's the Super Bowl. It's the day after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl rules the roost. It's like the Wu-Tang of sports. It rules everything around us. Even if you don't like the Super Bowl, more times than not, if you're not on Facebook making fun of it by calling it sports ball or making jokes like, is there a game on today? You probably go to a Super Bowl party because you got to find something you like at a Super Bowl party. You're going to find football if you like it. I do, so I went there. Even though last night's game, use air quotes because probably one of the worst Super Bowls. And it wasn't even, it was boring and badly played. It wasn't a matter of these were huge, great defenses battling it out and great, tactical stuff. That's not what happened. It was just a shitty game. We'll get to the football stuff at the end. I actually probably talk a little football shit at the end, but I'll save you guys because you came here for the beer stuff. But if you go to Super Bowl parties, you go for Super Bowl, for the game itself, you go for food or drink. And a lot of people will go for the commercials. Food and drink, the drink portion of the show is usually beer. And for that reason, there's a lot of beer commercials in the Super Bowl. And there's been some, kind of like funny history when it comes to beer commercials in the Super Bowl. More specifically when it comes to big beer and craft beer. So a couple years ago, I believe it was Budweiser. Yeah, I know it's Budweiser. They were taking shots at craft beer industry, saying that we brew beer the hard way. This is not your sons, or your cousins, or your mother's watermelon wheat. I think it was, which was really funny at the time because they just bought Elysian Brewing, and one of their staple beers and one of their kind of core beers was watermelon wheat. But that's all history. We've known about that for a while now. So they usually focused, especially over the past couple of years, trying to pick at that percentage of the craft beer industry to try to gain some market back because they've slowly lost market share in the craft beer portion of the show, which they're highly invested in with AB InBev's, like I think they call it their high-end portfolio or whatever. Anyway, so they've usually kind of attacked that portion of the show. This year they went a little bit different. They've been really pushing, more specifically Bud, and we'll touch on the other brewers real quick. But more specifically Bud, they've kind of been attacking their other competitors, Coors Light and Miller Lite. And this year they really chose a weird angle to really attack, something really specific to go after, which is that they do not put corn syrup in their beer. First things first, corn syrup is a trigger word or trigger phrase or trigger product. A lot of people freak out over high fructose corn syrup, which I believe a little bit different than just corn syrup, but they don't put corn syrup in their beers, and they made this whole big ad campaign about the fact that they don't do that they go out of their way, they don't put any corn syrup at all in any of their beers. Well, first things first, why would someone use corn syrup? It's just a fermentable sugar. It just makes it a little bit easier to make instead of using all grains. It speeds up the process the whole night. The funny part is they use rice syrup. So they actually use basically the rice version of corn syrup. So you get to debate which one's worse, corn syrup or rice syrup. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the facts. I don't know enough about how horrible each one is, other than the basics that most people know about. All I know is they're relatively the same thing when it comes to what you're trying to accomplish in the beer process. So for them to actually hammer home something like that is weird because they're essentially doing it with just a slightly different process. Because that's when you read about the Beer Advocate, when they talk about what is a craft brewery, they talk about you can't use a certain percent of adjuncts. Essentially, in your core portfolio and all your beers, essentially what they're talking about is rice and corn. Those are the two big ones that a lot of the big breweries use, and that's the reason why they're not allowed in the Brewers Association version of craft beer. And to just pick that point of corn syrup, I know it's a catchword. Like I said, it's a trigger phrase, and honestly, it's gonna work. I mean, like last night, I forget who it was. It was, I believe it was Jeremiah Zimmer from Hot Butcher for the World on Facebook. He posted shortly after it. He's like, I'll do you guys a favor. here's a web search for corn syrup and beer, and apparently they crashed Coors or Miller's website. That's how, like, so many people searched that term and tried to go to their website, and they ended up crashing it. So it works. It works to a certain extent. But how long-lived is that, attack going to work? I'm sure, Miller and Coors will come out with some sort of rebuttal on it, saying, we do this, we do that, this is how our beers are, yada, yada, yada. But, for a short-term marketing ploy, it seems like it's kind of smart. And it's funny because now if you look back in hindsight in 2020, it kind of makes sense because they were like, they made that push leading up to the Super Bowl, and you should have smelled it. You should have sniffed it, got that sniff test in the air when they really started pushing, these are our ingredients in our beer. They're going to put the ingredients on the label. And then you should have been smart enough, at least I should have been smart enough to be like, okay, they're setting us up for something here. And sure enough, it's some weird corn syrup ploy. But just the fact that they went after each other with that is kind of funny because, I don't know any, small brewer, craft brewer that ever used corn syrup. I don't think anybody would have even thought of using that. Maybe if somebody was trying to duplicate some kind of macro lager, they would use it for the sole purpose of trying to duplicate what they do. But yeah, that was a weird one. I just thought that was a weird point for them to drive home. Oddly enough, they ended up having to talk about Bud Light. They did the whole dilly dilly thing. They've been doing that for, I think it launched last year, last year's Super Bowl maybe. And they've been driving that home. And the commercials are actually pretty well done. They're quite funny. The actors that they chose to play the parts in those are quite good. But the biggest I would say the biggest commercial, at least for me, was the Bud Light Game of Thrones crossover. It led in with your typical Bud Light commercial. They had the king and the jester, and then they got the big knight guy who has some weird kind of auto-tuned vocoder voice, which just sounds like really weird and really annoying. And then he's gonna joust with somebody. It ends up being the mountain from Game of Thrones, and then he ends up crushing. They don't show it because it's PG TV. Crushes head, and then in comes the dragon and blows everything up. And it ended up being a Game of Thrones commercial, which is really, I thought was really kind of spun the whole not the conversation. It was just like no one would have expected that. I don't think anybody expected that to happen. And it was cool. It was a cool twist. It ended up making my favorite commercial out of the whole thing. Not that I watched a ton of it. By the time halftime hit, I kind of checked out because the game was so shitty. But the takeaway I got from that immediately was like, wow, that's funny. I laugh at this, go, wait a minute, what about fucking Ommegang? Ommegang has invested so much money into the Game of Thrones series. I mean, they've produced, I don't even know at this point, it has to be over a dozen beers in the Game of Thrones world, whether, barley wines and ales and all this kind of stuff, and they do packaging and new glassware, they do releases based on Game of Thrones. And to see kind of Budweiser get into bed with, or should I say more specifically HBO get into bed with Budweiser and do a Game of Thrones commercial with Budweiser is super fucking weird. It's super weird. Until you, again, step back a little bit. So my knee-jerk reaction was, wow, that was a funny commercial to like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I thought, Game of Thrones was all in on fucking, Ommegang and all that stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is crazy. Now, this morning, sit back and think about it. It all comes down to marketing. It all comes down to money. It makes so much more sense for them. I mean, Game of Thrones is way bigger than what Ommegang could have ever provided them. Pressure loss right front tire. We'll see what happens with that. Anyway, yeah, that's weird. Never had that happen before. It's been really cold out here, so it could be just that going on. I'll have to check the air pressure when I get to where I'm going. Hopefully my tires, it's definitely not flat. Anyway, they invested, or Ommegang, the story I've read was that somebody who had to do with Game of Thrones was at Brewery Ommegang. And they were sitting there chugging beers, and the owners or the stewards of sorry about that, crazy traffic going on. of Game of Thrones were actually at Ommegang, and they were like kind of sitting there, oh, you work for HBO, and we love Game of Thrones, and they're like, blah, 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 and they're like, oh, we should do a Game of Thrones beer. And that's how the whole thing got hit off. It was basically a barroom deal, like, hey, that would be cool. You know, you guys, you know, you make Belgian beers. If you kind of associate Belgian beers with anything you associate with old, you know, kind of, you know, castles in England, and obviously Belgium is not England, but you're talking about, you know, old structures and history and breweries that have been around forever. So it kind of made sense for that marriage to get along. But you're talking about Game of Thrones. While it was big at the time, it wasn't as big as it is now. It's essentially a cottage industry. I mean, there's so many things. I see shit Game of Thrones stuff everywhere, and I'm a fan. I like Game of Thrones too. So it's grown to the point where they've kind of outgrown Ommegang as far as the sponsor goes. So it makes sense from that aspect of things. But it's still kind of weird to see them do them dirty like that. This is my guess. Obviously, I have no idea any of the information that goes into this. But my guess is Budweiser approached them about it. I'm sure 19 billion people approach Game of Thrones all the time. And they probably paid for the whole fucking commercial. That's my guess. That was probably the deal. Be like, okay, we'll let you do a commercial. We'll do a tie together. But you foot the bill. You pay the $25 million for the 30-second spot. And you can use Game of Thrones in your ad. That's my guess is what happened. So basically, you know, Game of Thrones, HBO got a crazy Super Bowl ad that pretty much won the whole ad thing at zero cost to them and got a huge market fucking bump. That's my guess. But just the fact that they were so ingrained with the whole Ommegang portion of the show, you see them done dirty like that. You see them kind of, you know, push them aside. I don't even know if there's conversations, knowing how those big companies work. You know, I would be surprised if they even told Ommegang. Be like, listen, we want to give you guys a heads up. We're going to be running a spot with Budweiser. I'm sure, you know, the people up there at Ommegang were just like, fuck me. Fuck me. That kind of went down. But here's the other portion of the show. I bet you Ommegang gets a bump from this. Because, you know, if us as craft beer lovers or anything, we are loyal and we are romantic. So, you know, when it comes down to brass tacks, you know, I think a couple more people will pick up some Ommegang beers just to spite, if not in a what's the word I'm looking for? Because you're basically not going to hurt Bud's bottom line by buying a couple more Ommegang, but just in the spirit of goodwill, I bet you see a little bit of bump of Ommegang beers, at least from the craft beer standpoint. Other beer stuff going on. They talked. Budweiser did the whole. I believe it was Budweiser. Was it Budweiser again? Was it? I forget who it was. Should have done my research. But someone, one of the big macro brewers said we're wind powered. I don't even think that's the thing worth talking about. Fucking wind power. Who fucking renewable power? Like that's like some like crazy right wing like fucking stance. A person, a truther who doesn't believe in like whatever, like, you know, the person their whole life has never bought into like global warming and environmental. Would be like, we'll do this and it'll appease people. Be like, people have been on that for years. Plus, you know, wind powered. What is that? Does it make the beer taste any better? No. You know, are you fucking, you know, I don't know. If a fucking horrible, you know, army was powered by wind, doesn't make them a good army. You know? Anyway, it just didn't make any sense to me as far as that goes. And then, the only other commercial I really remember seeing about the beer stuff was, I believe it was Alicia Keys doing like a Michelob Ultra commercial, which I found to be really odd. It was just kind of like it was well done. There was cool audio to it, but I think it was just, she might be doing a Grammys or something like that, and I think it was a tie into that. So it was a pretty lackadaisical. I mean, it seemed like Bud kind of just dominated when it came to the whole beer portion of the show. So, yeah, I got to drink my coffee, man. This shit I got to get in me before I get to work. Me talking, taking up too much time. But yeah, it was just a weird Super Bowl when it came to the whole beer portion of the show. Yeah, I think that's it. Sports. Let's talk about sports. So if you don't like sports, you can shut this off now. Man, I hate the fucking Patriots. God damn it, man. Listen, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I'm in the AFC, so I'm used to them winning. So it's not something that like really I kind of expected it, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, man, it's annoying to see those guys win, especially in a game like this where it's just like, man, it was really bad. Like a lot of you'll hear it you'll probably hear it mostly from, like, maybe executives from CBS or, the NFL or Patriots fans, and it was a really well-done game. It was a chess match, and that, they kind of game planned really well, and it was just that genius. Bill Belichick kind of won the day. It's nothing of that whatsoever. It was really two inept offenses, like bad to the point where it was crazy. I know a little bit about football. I'm not gonna sit here and say I know everything about football. I played football in the college, so I was around it quite a bit, and kind of followed since I left. But it's pretty simple. Listen, you want to beat the Patriots, you do two things. You got to pressure Brady up the middle, which they did. But Brady was pretty off in his game to begin with. But they were in his face and touching and tapping him. Maybe not sacking him a lot, but they were all around him. So they cover that portion of the show. The second thing you got to do, and if you want to go back and watch tapes, watch everybody who's beaten the Patriots, all you have to do is do wheel routes with a speedy, either like a scat back, running back, or like a slot receiver. Just a wheel route. You smoke them every time. It's oddly enough because that's how the Patriots kind of won the game. They did a wheel route with Gronkowski against the Rams that ended up kickstarting that long touchdown drive. But it was really bad. Like a really badly played game. To the point where the Patriots, I think they ran the same play 4 times in a row to score. If you're running the same play 4 times in a row and you get scored on, that's not one offensive genius. That's not anything other than defensive ineptitude. But yeah, it was pretty poopy for the most part, and it just sucks to see the Patriots win so much, especially being an AFC East fan. I have a special hatred for the Patriots because I do believe they're a little bit. They it's almost like if you're a Patriots fan, you like these kind of things. That's kind of how it is when you're a fan. But they've cheated. They have cheated. That's not a make believe thing. They have cheated. They don't cheat all the time. The reason why they win a lot isn't because they're cheating all the time, but they are cheaters. They've been caught. They've been penalized for cheating. I mean, that's the truth. It's not like I'm making that up and it's, well, you're a Patriot hater. You hate us because you hate us kind of thing. They're cheaters, but it's also the biggest sticking point is, and this is very kind of, it just drives me insane. My brother's a Patriots fan. I should air quote that. My brother is a Patriots fan, and it drives me nuts because he peacocks and he's like pumps his chest up about the Patriots. But he was a San Diego Chargers fan until he was 30. Maybe a little older. And then switched to the Patriots. And that's my book. Like number one, like rule against fandom is switching teams, I switched teams once. When I moved to Pennsylvania when I was 9, I became an Eagles fan for a week. I was 9. And then I realized what I was doing and then stopped, But to do it at such an advanced age is just weird to me. So, like, we got to the point where we're getting, like, just barking matches about it. He'll be like, oh, won the Super Bowl this year. I'll be like, I didn't see the fucking Chargers win shit. So, yeah, it's, so to see him gloat is just extra special daggery stuff. But, Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I know a lot of people say he is the best. Well, it is what it is. He's won quite a bit of Super Bowls, but, Robert Horry has 7 NBA rings. He's not one of the best NBA players of all time. So, he's definitely up there. He's definitely in the top 5, if not top 3, with some of the best ones. Your Elways and your Montanas and whatnot. He's up there. But, yeah, it was a pretty poopy game. And just kind of a bummer. Because I think, if you got the opposite end of the spectrum team-wise, if you got the Saints, all due respect, should have been in. And then the Chiefs, who, give it hats off to the Patriots, they beat them, but, the Chiefs could have easily won that game if they weren't coached by Andy Reid. Then it would have been, I think Chiefs Saints Super Bowl would have been a skosh. Just a skosh. Better of a game. And it was a pretty poopily ref game too. That hit that Jared Goff took in on a sideline, like he was inbounds. His foot was inbounds while his body was going out of bounds, and he got smoked. That has been called all year. That has been called consistently all year as personal foul. Not only that, like I kind of joked about it on Facebook. If that was Brady, they would have fucking stopped the fucking game. they disqualified half the Rams and probably forfeited the game. That was a big one. There was a couple other pretty bad ones that hit at the beginning of the game. When they stopped the Patriots, I believe it was on 3rd and 20 in the first or second quarter, when the guy just basically made their helmets touch, but his helmets didn't hit. He actually made a form tackle and hit him right with his chest. They called a personal foul on that one. That was bad. I don't remember. They got away with. I mean, the refs screwed up the one. What was it? Robert Woods, I think, caught a touchdown, or not touchdown. The pass on the sidelines and didn't get his feet in bounds. The refs missed that one totally, but the Patriots couldn't throw in the flag. But the Rams got up to the line and kind of snapped that one real quick. And the Brandon Cooks could have been touchdown. The second one. The first one was Jared Goff's fucking fault, man. He took way too long to throw that ball. Amazing play by, I think it was Dan McCourty. But the second one, man, that was pass interference on the Patriots. The guy was arm bar and holding his arm down. But there's no way for the ref to see that, so it's not like you can kind of poop on the refs for not calling it. But it would have been a miraculous one-handed catch. But yeah, down the end, it was pretty poop-tastic till the end. And yeah, Patriots pulled out like they almost certainly always do, those sons of bitches. Yeah, halftime sucked balls. I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to say this right now. You can hate me for it. I can see myself losing a ton of subs. Don't hate Maroon 5. I actually don't. I know a lot of people like to make fun of them, but I don't care. I mean, I don't hate them, don't like them, don't love them. They're just kind of there. They're whatever. They're pop music. Who gives a shit? But it was really weird. And this is the kind of poopy thing about Facebook is to see the kind of reaction of people to the halftime show, and people, complaining about Maroon 5 and complaining about the lead singer taking his shirt off. Like, what the fuck did you expect was going to happen? And then you had people complaining about, why the fuck are there rappers on with Maroon 5? This is a Super Bowl. Listen, Atlanta is the fucking rap capital of the fucking world, man. The fact that they didn't, and I think that I know there was protests. I didn't even know what they were about. I didn't even pay attention to it. I'm assuming that's what the protests were about, is that, a rapper wasn't the headliner for the fucking Super Bowl. Like, it's literally Atlanta. You go, if you want to become a rapper, you go to Atlanta. You want to be a fucking country star, you go to fucking Nashville. It's just, that's how it works. And the fact, good on them for including them in there. And they were a big portion of it with people, Big Boy and whatnot. But, yeah, pretty poopy halftime show. Commercials are subpar, sans the crossover commercial. Game was fucking horrific. Even the end, like I said, that fact that they ran 4 fucking plays, the same fucking play in a row. The score is bonkers crazy. And all in all, it is what it is. So, what did we learn today? We learned today that I don't drink enough coffee while I do these morning vlog things, so that sucks. 2, we learned that corn syrup is in macro beer. Are we surprised? Do we care? I don't know. 3, there's also rice syrup. Do we care about that? I don't know. You tell me. We learned that the Patriots are a product of a really good coach, and they have a really good quarterback too, and they have a really good team. And Sean McVay's not that good of a quarterback. Ommegang should be a little bit pissed off, while at the same time they shouldn't be surprised. And we also learned that I could talk for about 23 minutes before I get bored, I guess. At least on these daily drives. So there you go. There's a little morning vlog for you. A little beer information, a little Super Bowl recap. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think about the whole fucking corn syrup thing? Did you see it coming with the ingredient addition from Bud Light? What do you think about the Game of Thrones crossover? Do you think Ommegang was done dirty? And let me know what you thought about the game. I'm sure Patriots fans are going to love it, and everybody else is going to hate it. But if you think that was a good game, good result if you're a fan. But if you think that was a good game, then you should check your rose-colored glasses, because they're probably a little bit too rosy. So there you go. A little daily vlog in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Talk to you tomorrow. Cheers. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe another couple days. Got to find out shit to talk about.